Joe Biden's cabinet is coming into sharper focus as he gears up to announce some key nominations tomorrow. We've learned he selected longtime foreign policy diplomats to serve as Secretary of State, United Nations Ambassador, and National Security Advisor. Now, this all comes, as I said, despite the Trump administration's blocking key federal transition resources, as well as access to crucial State Department information. For more on this, let's bring in CBS News correspondent Nikole Killion. She's following the latest from Wilmington, Delaware. All right, Nikole, we've learned that the president-elect has selected Tony Blinken to serve as his Secretary of State. And you also reported earlier this morning Linda Thomas-Greenfield will serve as the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations. Tell us about these two diplomats.
Well, Vlad, as far as Tony Blinken, he and the president-elect go way back more than 15 years. He first started working for the president-elect when he led the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, and then as he moved up, he worked for both the Clinton and the Obama administrations. During part of the Obama administration, he actually served as National Security Advisor to then Vice President Joe Biden, and he also served as Deputy Secretary of State. So he has a very deep level of experience in terms of foreign policy. Same can be said for Linda Thomas-Greenfield, who also is a career diplomat. She has served in some capacity of foreign service since the Reagan administration, but most recently served as the Assistant Secretary of State for African Affairs, was one of the highest ranking black diplomats at the department. She left not long after President Trump took office and has been working in the private sector, but certainly a lot of experience under her belt as well.
And Nikole, Biden also plans to name Jake Sullivan as his national security advisor. What do we know about Jake Sullivan?
Yeah, that's right. He also has a lot of foreign policy chops, although most recently he has been advising the president-elect on domestic policy issues, but he also served as national security advisor to former Vice President Joe Biden. He also worked closely with former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, including on her presidential campaign. So, again, a lot of depth to this bench and these announcements that the president-elect is putting forward.
So a couple of big considerations that the president-elect is thinking about, Nikole, and I'm guessing, or I'm wondering, how these diplomats will help shape some of his foreign policy. The president-elect has talked about rejoining the Iran nuclear deal, the Paris Climate Agreement, and the World Health Organization. Where do they stand on those issues?
Oh, well, one thing Tony Blinken told our Margaret Brennan a couple of months back is that Biden administration would more or less do the complete opposite of what the Trump administration has done. And so the president-elect has made clear that his motto when it comes to foreign policy is "We are back." And many of his transition advisors have made clear that he will not hesitate to rejoin, for instance, the World Health Organization, to rejoin the Paris Climate Agreement, and potentially to get back into the Iran nuclear deal. Interesting, because Jake Sullivan, who we just talked about, was actually instrumental in starting to lay the groundwork for that diplomatic agreement. So again, you can probably expect that all of these, people in their new roles will likely try to bring back some of these policy positions and decisions as they were prior to President Trump coming into office.
So all of this is happening, though, while the Trump administration continues to block Biden's team from accessing crucial State Department resources, frustrating the transition. So how is the Biden team sort of working around this? How is this affecting the transition process?
Well, again, they continue to do what they can. And as you can see, it's not preventing the president-elect from naming more people to his cabinet and to his staff. We expect him to formalize these cabinet announcements on Tuesday. But look, there continues to be concern that the longer that this is held up by GSA, that, again, it continues to affect national security, that it affects what they may be able to do with regard to the the coronavirus pandemic. We do know thus far the agency's posture at the General Services Administration has not changed, but we also know that late last week, a group of Democratic lawmakers sent a letter to Administrator Emily Murphy asking for a briefing by today. We have reached out to the agency multiple times, but haven't heard back yet whether or not the administration will brief lawmakers as they've requested.
All right, Nikole Killion for us. Thank you, Nikole. Appreciate it.
You bet.